Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook stream on the, um, Cassandra life amongst pathology, aka keeping on in pandemics and collapse during mass denial. That is what I have entitled the stream as I have just read. Um, this is a that is a clip from 12 Monkeys, the original 1990s show. I feel like what is that? Um, Pretty sure that's Bruce Willis. That's definitely Bruce Willis. Yeah. So anyways, today I was thinking about doing, uh, kind of focusing on a more personal note. I mean, I guess like the Hawaii Maui related streams were also personal, but this is like another, um it's personal, but it's also universal, but it's kind of talking about the, how do you say this. Well, let's start with what is a Cassandra. Why did I entitle it Cassandra specifically? And why did I use that screenshot? Well, Cassandra complex is the situation where a person's valid warnings or concerns are dismissed or disbelieved. So, if you didn't know what that means, because I know not a lot of science fiction nerds who follow me because of Neofeud and game related endeavors that I'm involved in probably know that. But if you don't know what it is, Cassandra complex is a syndrome, complex phenomena, predicament, dilemma, curse that relates to a person's, wait, am I not live? Sorry. Okay. Cassandra syndrome, complex phenomenon, predicament, dilemma, curse relates to a person whose valid warnings or concerns are disbelieved by others. The term originates in Greek mythology. Cassandra was a daughter of Priam, the king of Troy. Struck by her beauty, Apollo provided her with the gift of prophecy. But when Cassandra refused Apollo's romantic advances, he placed a curse ensuring that nobody would believe her warnings. Cassandra was left with the knowledge of future events, but could neither alter these events nor convince others of the validity of her predictions. So, like, obviously this applies in many, many, many ways, but as a science fiction writer, which is one of the many hats that I wear, one of the many togas that I apply to my body, as the ancient Greeks did. But one of the aspects of being a science, particularly like I do a lot of cautionary science fiction, like obviously, Neofeud, the cyberpunk game that I spent my flagship game, right, that I'm constantly talking about because it is what supports the Silver Spook Cooperative, the primary flagship creation that supports what we do here. And so Neofeud it's very much in a cautionary tale, which is to say, it is a cautionary tale in science fiction is a valid concern, a prediction of a terrible future, right? A warning about what was to come, right? Like all cyberpunk tends to be, or at least the good ones are, I think. And so Neofeud is like that. So that's in one way, just being a cautionary science fiction writer is, it's already like being a Cassandra of sorts. Where Neofeud is obviously about, well, a lot of things. But also, and like specifically, high tech, low life, the collapse of society due to, wait, why is my computer is losing its mind right now? my computer is having a a Microsoft update complex, and that is causing CPU collapse. But anyway, okay, now it seems to be okay. Anyways, so predicting I'm not predicting that science fiction writers are not necessarily predicting the future, but we are sometimes trying to prognosticate and like give warnings, right? Fahrenheit 451, just another one, is a book in which a dystopian science fiction novel by Ray Bradbury, in which American society where books have been personified and outlawed, and firemen burn any that are found, right? Starring Guy Montag. This is another science fictional Cassandra book. And in fact, this week we discovered that Ray Bradbury was not too off the mark, because I have a long list of links that I go through. That's about 300 different links. But they were actually burning books. There were literal people with flamethrowers this week doing book burning. Yeah, Missouri senator says he would torch the woke pornographic books, and they literally, like, here's a picture of that. So and all around, not there. This is like literal manifestation of the Fahrenheit 451 dystopian novel in real life, happening in the U.S. in real time. Now this is obviously these people are using literal flamethrowers there, yeah. But even without the flame, this is a theatrical, over the top, virtue signaling, and the virtue being hyper reactionary. But there is also, across the U.S. and across certainly the West, there is mass book bans, and just like bringing a book to school in your a teacher bringing any book to school is basically illegal, and teachers are losing their jobs. I mean, this is one way in which like what was predicted, right, by a Cassandra was literally already come true. And so anyway, I'm gonna get stuck on that in particular, but let me move forward. Sorry, my computer is as I said, my computer is having my computer is suffering digital Windows update pathology as we speak. So I'm trying to deal with that while trying to stream at the same time. Anyway, okay, so Cassandra was left with only the knowledge of future events, but could neither alter the events nor convince others of the validity of her prediction. So she was cursed with the knowing what was going to happen, like watching two trains going towards each other slowly and inexorably and inalterably, right? And everyone else not knowing that, but knowing that at some point in the future, in the near upcoming future, that there would be a crash, but you unable to do anything about it, right? And so, like, being a cautionary science fiction writer, that's one thing. Being a person of color and a native Hawaiian person of color, and also, one that is somewhat, now at least, understanding that situation in a global colonial capitalist, anti-indigenous, reactionary, Western-led world. I mean, the collapse of that world from a person from the quote-unquote new world, the way the Europeans would say it would be the new world. So, like, for indigenous people and global South people, watching the Western capitalist, colonialist, patriarchal, white supremacist world collapse is also like this was always going to happen if you were being clear-eyed with it. And it's more obvious from a native perspective. It's more obvious from a non-Western perspective looking in that that's unsustainable. And this is not even the climate. This is beyond climate. This is that all of those systems that all interlink and interlock and they're all the root cause of climate change. And so from that perspective, just from a native, non-white perspective, non-global, like non-global North perspective, also because Hawaii is a colony of the United States. In that sense, that's also kind of like being a Cassandra. And then, but the thing about the thing about that is that being somebody that can see what's coming, a lot of times when you're surrounded by other people who don't see it, right? Now, this if you're somebody, right, if you're somebody who is seeing what is coming, right, like, oh my God, this pandemic is gonna be catastrophically bad, right? That's a valid, and you know that because of actual empirical, rational, scientific information that you have access to, right? Now that's a big if, right? A lot of people don't have access to empirical, rational, scientific information, nor many don't have access to an education that will teach them how to think and use that information. So that's another whole problem. But like if so but what I was going with that is, to be a Cassandra is different from, being, it's different. It's different to being somebody who is, how do we say this? I don't like the word conspiracy theorist. I don't like any English words, but they're all terrible. They're all so. Every English word is infected with Western pathology. It is like picking up speaking English words and thinking them in letting them cycle through your neuronal fluctuations is like, it's like traipsing through a mall and mass inhaling trillions of particles of other people's aerosolized lung fluid. So we don't tend to do that here at the Silver Spoon Cooperative. We don't like mass snog thousands of other people on a daily basis by breathing other people's air. So, but like, anyway, so when you people, if you have, oh, something terrible is going to happen, there is, reptilian aliens are going to come down and take us to outer space, or Jesus Christ is going to come down and kill 99% of Earth's population and save a handful. Those are not Cassandra. Those are not Cassandra phenomenon, right? Because those are not valid warnings. Those are invalid warnings, right? Now, what makes it valid or invalid? Okay, I'm not going to go there right now. But it's important to make that distinction, because there's a lot of people who say a lot of things, right? The end is coming. It's tomorrow. In 12 Monkeys, right? Which is what that's a screenshot from the movie, right? A deadly virus. The end is nigh, and the end is 1996, right? Wipes out most of humanity. Now, obviously, that's already coming. That's already passed, right? There was a big 2012 prediction, right? The 2012 phenomenon. There's a movie 2012, right? Because the end is coming. 2012. I forgot who's in that movie. I can't remember everybody. It was a mega global disaster movie, but it was based upon a eschatological beliefs that cataclysmic or transformative events would occur on or around December 21st, 2012. The date was regarded as the end date of a 5,126-year-long cycle in the Mesoamerican long count calendar, and festivities took place on 21st December 2012 to commemorate the event in the countries that were part of the Maya civilization, with main events at Chichen Itza in Mexico and Tikal in Guatemala. But importantly, also there, if people had listened to the currently existing indigenous people, they could have told them like more about what that 2012 signified. It's to the Western colonial gaze, it's revelations, right? But it's a lot of what is happening. What happened with the 2012 phenomenon was the colonizers misreading indigenous science and technology, such as the Mesoamerican long count calendar, and kind of not really understanding them. I'm not qualified myself to explain all of that, but it is interesting that, right, that there is a tendency to see for people to predict and talk about. I mean, the U.S. and the West is filled with apocalyptic cults, especially the U.S., but the West generally, like the rapture. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that God will come to Earth and build the world governments and change and alter everything. These predictions of the apocalypse, the U.S. is run by neocons who believe that at a particular time and date, the Jesus Christ will come riding on a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a Remington rifle in one hand and a Bible in the other, and with laser eyes destroy all enemies of the Judeo-Christian world, and a lot of the reason why there's a deep support for a particular entity in the east of the West Bank is because of predictions of an end of the world, a Christian rapture, right? The lightning and thunder will shoot out from the throne. The lion and the lamb will lay down. The seas will run red with blood. The skies will rain, cannibal shrimp, and frogs that are also gay will jump out of the Nile River that was fluoridated, and that was part of the apocalypse predicted by Alex Jones. No, I'm just joking, but kind of not. And so the bodily fluids of Earth will be the bodily fluids of the non-believer will be contaminated by communism / some all of this. But you see, all of those things are part of the invalid warnings, right? The invalid warnings. So that's separate from a Cassandra complex, because people be like, well, I also know the end of the world's coming. It's like any second now. All of culture, the wokeism will destroy the world, and we'll all fall apart. Like the U.S. is collapsing and losing the ill-advised and ill-fated new Cold War on China because there's too many wokeisms. People are too awake. They should go to sleep. That's what that means. What is up, Victor? Anyways, I'm kind of going off into the weeds with this, but I think that but I just said I was going to talk more about like my personal perspective, because and to get more into the present with it. Well, let me finish this. Then I'll talk about the present. People have applied the metaphor in a variety of contexts, such as psychology, environmentalism, politics, science, cinema, the corporate world, and philosophy. It has been in circulation since at least 1914, when Charles Ullman used it in his book, A History of the Peninsular War, Volume 5, published in 1914. Both of them agreed to treat the Cassandra-like prophecies, which Thibault kept sending from Salamanca, as wild and whirling winds. The Oxford English Dictionary records the use of Cassandra-like from 1670 and Cassandra-like from 1863. Later, in the 1949, French philosopher Gaston Bachelard coined the term Cassandra complex to refer to a belief that things could be known in advance. So, La Jetée is a movie. Just for all the film nerds out there, one of our inner sanctum Silver Spook Hui members, Mesh would certainly be able to know and would be able to tell you and explain to you the key points and the importance of this movie in the history of cinema. La Jetée is a 1962 French science fiction feature directed by Chris Marker, associated with the Left Bank artistic movement. But it's this movie, this is what 12 Monkeys was based upon. Just to go into the film a little bit. A man is a prisoner in the aftermath of World War III in a post-apocalyptic Paris, where survivors live underground in Palais de Chaillot galleries. Scientists research time travel, hoping to send test subjects to different time periods to call past and future to the rescue of the present. They have difficulty finding subjects who can mentally withstand the shock of time travel. and scientists settle upon a protagonist whose key to the past is a vague but obsessive memory from his pre-war childhood of a woman he had seen on the observation platform. Anyways, the science 1995 science fiction film 12 Monkeys was inspired and directly borrows from that movie, but it's also a Terry Gilliam movie. So I have multiple Terry Gilliam references inside of Neofeud, including Brazil and being swamped and nearly smothered and forcefully asphyxiated by paper. So it's kind of like surviving 2020s, but instead of a tiny microscopic microscopic apocalypse, it's you get smothered by paper wrapping your face up. In 12 Monkeys, it is microscopic bacterial viral apocalypse. Anyway, back to this. So I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about this is because like the reality of like now it's like it's one thing like in science fiction writing, in thinking about the future, in being an indigenous, activist and person of color, a member of the global South. That's one way. It's like being a Cassandra, and these are all different facets of the doomed jewel of being a Cassandra, or somebody that's trying to air valid concerns and warnings that people are collectively. Now, the important part is that there is a mass denial, right? So keeping on in pandemic, so keeping on going, just putting one foot in front of the other, trying to survive in pandemic specifically, because 12 Monkeys is a movie with a catastrophic world destroying virus kills 99% of the human species. And so keeping on in pandemics. So the way that Bruce Willis and his people have to survive in the future is they live underground. They live far away from all animals. They have this really weird, this really strange underground society, and it's Terry Gilliam. So it's got all the Byzantine, wonky, kind of creepy, surreal, gonzo, science fictional Terry Gilliamness that you know and love in such movies as I already quoted, Brazil. Terry Gilliam is a weird guy, but he's got some interesting. He's made some interesting movies. He's also a member of the possibly now defunct Monty Python comedy troupe / serial very funny movie team. Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Anyways, 12 Monkey Disease. 12 Monkeys Future Society. So like it's a society run by weird doctors with steampunk contraptions, the giant oversized vehicular mileage gauges. They're kind of creepy, somewhat Nazi looking scientists, except for Johnny Cage here. I don't know why Johnny Cage is there. And then there's in the 12 Monkeys TV show, which I have seen the entirety of, there's a famous German actress who plays the lead scientist. So that's interesting. But anyways, so it's like so the scientists are trying to figure out what they can do to survive the plague, for the tiny, decimal point of a percent of humanity that's still alive on Earth, right? They're trying to figure out what they can do to not completely fall apart, and they need information. That's why they make a time machine to go back into the past to find out what else they can learn about the virus. They use this is the time machine that they use in the TV show. They use it many times. It's not Bruce Willis. It's somebody who kind of he's discount Bruce Willis from the sci-fi he's a sci-fi channel. A sci-fi channel discount Bruce Willis keeps on going back and forth to the past to try to figure out what they can learn from the from that time, because they know that this event's gonna happen. They can't really stop it. It's a little bit like Terminator, except in Terminator, right? Kyle Reese, etc. And people are in Terminator. Reprogrammed good Terminators are sent back. Right? Terminator is also a very Cassandra-y movie, because Sarah Connor knows the Judgment Day apocalypse is gonna happen, but right, it never, she can never stop it. She can never really stop it, right? And so, but in Terminator, Kyle Reese or the future people are sent back to prevent Judgment Day, so that machines don't take over the world. Super intelligent, artificial intelligence, Skynet takes command of the military and wipes out humanity and hunts the remains of the human race to the reaches of the now wasteland that used to be a nice planet. And so, but in 12 Monkeys, it's not really about saving. It's not about stopping the apocalypse. It's about getting information to try to survive the inevitable apocalypse. Anyway, I just and so I think but James Cole, or I think is it James Cole in both of them? His life is very weird. His life is not the best. He's surrounded by weird Brad Pitt, unhinged people in psychiatry, psychiatric hospitals. Bruce Willis's life kind of is not the best, I relate to 12 Monkeys Bruce Willis. He's getting beaten up all the time. He's getting attacked by the police that think he's just a hobo, but I'm trying to save humanity in the future. He's like, what are you talking about? They're like, right? He's constantly getting into fights with law enforcement, with the corporations that are creating horrible viruses that will destroy the world. He's vomiting up his insides. He's going through time. He's kind of not having a good one all the time. He really is. In Die Hard, to be fair, Bruce Willis is never having the best day of his life in any of his movies. He's being hunted by, German terrorists in Japanese billionaire buildings in Die Hard. Getting shot at by helicopters and running around through glass barefoot. In 12 Monkeys, he's getting punched by everybody. He's getting shot at by everybody. Everybody thinks he's, just either a homeless person, a lunatic homeless person, a Cassandra. Well, he is a Cassandra homeless person. He doesn't have a home because he's been transported from the future into the past. And he's never having a good one. It's rough. It's just rough. And Bruce Willis does a good job of looking disheveled, disgruntled. Why am I that guy? Why do I have to be this guy that has to do this thing? And it's kind of well, nobody else could. And I look like an everyman American, probably Irish ancestry, scruffy ass motherfucker. When I say motherfucker, I mean that in the polite German terrorist way, as enunciated by Alan Rickman. Anyways, what's up, Big Teal? Big Teal says, even if it's element, Bruce plays a working class character. Yeah. So and so but what I'm getting at is that Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys is from this crap hole. Nothing is alive. Everything is dead. Everything is frozen wasteland, right? It's after the pandemic apocalypse. The 12 Monkeys, the glass vial has been broken in the airport that releases the virus that infects 2,000 passengers that get on 50 different planes, right? Somebody drops a vial in the airport. Everybody gets on in LA. Somebody gets on a plane to Tokyo with the virus. In LA, somebody gets on a plane to London with the virus, to India with the virus, to every continent, right? From one airport, and then within 24 hours, the whole planet, right? And that's part of hyper interconnected mass transit, right? And the level of urbanization and the technology that has enabled the mass flow of the population is something that is accelerating the pandemic, and that's something that also we, like that we can't really slow down. But that is, he watches that happen as it always happens, right, in the timeline of 12 Monkeys. And like he does try to do something about it, but well, I'm not going to give you it all, but they're always trying to do something. There's people that are trying to do something about it, but then there are people that are saying we just have to accept it and we have to figure out how to deal with this inevitable event. Right now, I'm not saying that like if I am a Cassandra, or if we identify ourselves as people who have valid warnings, again, right, just in case you missed the earlier bit of this, as people who have valid warnings or concerns that are disbelieved by others, right, talking about pandemic, talking about capitalist collapse, talking about colonial global global north, Western countries, G7 countries collapsing in the rise of the formerly colonized, the global majority, the 90% of Africa, Asia, Latin American countries, in a sense of environmental collapse that many didn't believe, for a long time, for decades and decades. That doesn't mean that there's nothing that can be done about these things, right? Obviously, there are many things that can be done to mitigate, to lessen. You can't really fully prevent the impacts of actions taken decades ago, but you can like lessen like the impact of it, and work to avert further damage that you're doing and further worsening the current crises that we're already in, right? And so, but I wanted to kind of talk about this, and I know I keep like dancing around the subject, but I mean, I really wanted to talk about like what that life is actually like, because I feel like, I mean, we're living in this kind of time where a lot of people want to quote unquote go back to normal. Like in the last few streams, I do a lot of Twitch streams, and I've talked about a lot of these topics in the Twitch streams, especially more recently, as there's been a surge in COVID numbers, and like, I mean, just here's a one way in which I'm already a Cassandra. Let me find that one. I made this thread. Where is it? See, this is from a long time ago. Okay, so this is I'm not just a science fiction writer that writes about capitalist corporate dystopias where mega corporations run the world. That's a lot of people kind of could suggest that this future was going to be not so good. William Gibson made a whole book called Neuromancer in the 1980s about that. But in 2021, I predicted that there would never be normal again. There would never be a 2019 normal again. I mean, I had that thought very early on in the pandemic, and I made this whole thread because I wanted people to realize that the 2019 normal, where we could simply go out and about without masks, without ventilation, without filters to prevent the mass infections from airborne illnesses. Just one of them is COVID, right? Which is catastrophically damaging, more damaging than anybody, most people are willing to accept, right? That's the some people believe that COVID doesn't exist, right? It's just a cold, it's just a flu, right? Those people are the disconnected from reality doomsayers, right? Those are not valid warnings. But then there are, or they're disconnected from reality people. There are people that are saying that, like, the doom is that everyone's going to take a vaccine, and if everyone takes a vaccine, then they'll all be implanted with microchips, or the vaccine is going to kill you, not the disease. And those are also disconnected from reality, invalid warning invalid warning sayers, but there is a valid warning, right? There is a valid problem, right? That if you, and it's like, we're not like, there's a lot of science and there's ongoing research into this, what COVID is, what it does to you, and there's ongoing research, but it is real research that is actually happening. Like yeah, sometimes studies are paid for by corporations. That does happen, but then there also are lots and lots and lots of valid scientists. There's just people that are trying to, even just individuals trying to research and just personally test and see if people, if who's getting sick, like looking things up, right? Most of the time these are young. Most of these time these are women. It's actually young women parents, or young mothers, or young non-men parents. It's almost most of the ones that I've seen are like women. Like one of them is OK Doomer, which is Jessica. Her name is Jessica Wildfire, is the writer of this blog, but she's a young parent. Like I think she has like a PhD in English, but she's like a young parent with like kids, and just like, I'm trying to tell people, hey, let's. I'm watching my kids and other people's kids just collapse and fall apart. I don't want this, right? Because, we talked about patriarchy last time. But part of the feminine energy is preservational. It's about maintaining and protecting the future, the children, right? The young that need to be nurtured and prevented from getting sick and dying, right? The masculine energy is more destructive, just in general, right? It's about fighting and neutralizing threats, right? But it's not really thinking in that sense a lot of the time. And if you're a mother, but you're a 50-year-old mother with 20-year-olds, you're not seeing, you might not be seeing what's happening with where really the biggest impact is happening. From what I gather, it's happening in schools, it's happening in classrooms, it's happening to young kids. Right? 70% of all COVID infections are actually children. Even though they're not dying at the highest rate, children are not passing away at the rate of 80-year-olds. But the total illnesses and the impact on the impact on human life is the greatest on children. Children have the most unlived life to live, right? If you're 80 years old, if you're 70, and I'm saying it's good that 70 and 80 years old are dying. But if you're 70, 80 years old, you have already passed the prime of your life. You have already worked your decades of work life, right? You've already lived, you've lived, you've laughed, you've cried, you've loved, you've married, or you've been ace and you've not married. You've gone on your explorations and you've played and you've done all the things that you want to do, or you have some regrets about the mountains you didn't climb and the pandemics you didn't solve. In the wars you didn't start if you're a neocon. But if you, like Victoria Newland, but if you are 80 or 70 or 80, you've already lived. But if you're a child, you're just starting your life, right? And also you're a child. You're innocent. You other people are making decisions for you. The society, your parents, your teachers, right, that are not masking sometimes, sadly, and the principals, the student body, the government, the civilization is making decisions for you, and you have the most to lose, right? And so young in particular, this is from my anecdotal evidence of looking at this, is young women that are young mothers that are like, I have to think about my kids, I have to look, and they're spending a lot of their personal time. Like another one is Jess. Obviously, Holly is one of them, right? Who is our moderator and Silver Spoon Cooperative member extraordinaire. Actually, they're both named Jess. There's a lot of Jesses for some reason. Is it just Jess? This one, yeah. If you type in Jess and you type in COVID, it's gonna be there. You're gonna see it. They're young parents that are watching their children and watching other people's children just dropping like flies, and they're going like, why is nobody doing anything about this? I'm trying to get information about, like, Travis Barker has his positive COVID test. It doesn't matter how, I'm trying to tell everybody, it doesn't matter how healthy you are. It doesn't matter how much you exercise. It doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter how well you sleep. It doesn't matter how much money you have. COVID doesn't care. Paxlovid is not going to save you. Pfizer, like, you know, we can't just rely on, like, vaccines are good. Yes, they reduce the total transmission and severity. They're not enough, right? They're like I have data upon threads upon threads. I mean, this is what I do with my, like, as a non-man, as a Mahu non-binary trans indigenous person. I'm also spending a lot of time making threads. I mean, sometimes about sickness, like the one that I made this week or last week, because there's a massive rise, is about specifically connecting the history of disease and pandemic to the history of weaponization of disease and the weaponization of illness from a colonial perspective, from a colonizer trying to massacre the colonized, right? For example, to establish the United States. I mean, I'm trying to independently research and collect as much data and to try to share what I can of the true data that I've got, so that it helps people, right? Like, I'll just go through this real quick since I haven't gone through it on this channel. But this is my own Cassandra complex, like going like, this is what is the history, and this is what we have. This is where we've been. This is the information, right? This is the valid warnings. Why are they valid? Because they're based upon verifiable, empirical, historical data and science. And it's not everything I say is not perfectly true, but it's as best as I can do. And I'm trying to share all that information, right? So validly to make sure that people get the concerns and the warnings and what they can do to try to avert continued ongoing catastrophe and not exacerbate it, right? But really quick, diseases like smallpox were weaponized by colonizers to eliminate Native Americans. They tried this on Native Hawaiians, but we used contact tracing, distancing, and vaccines, and universal healthcare, which we invented to prevent biological warfare from wiping out our people. I mean, speaking of 12 monkeys, indigenous people have already survived a 12 monkeys Armageddon. The end of the world happened in 1492 for us. You know, it's been an ongoing survival since then, right? Indigenous people are kind of the original Cassandras in a lot of ways, because we've been surviving the end of everything, right? Our ban of our culture, ban of our language, the mass death of the majority of our people, the continued subjugation, enslavement, and you name it, right? So it's really like we're the OG Cassandras here. And this is what we learned, right? This is what we learned to survive that. This is when they lost. The Native people lost 70% of their population to epidemic in Massachusetts. They lost 90% in the 1600s. The Pilgrims arrived and they found well-cleared fields which they claimed for their own. It was to them the wonderful preparation of the Lord Jesus Christ by his providence for his people's abode in the Western world, right? So the arrival of the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, the Mayflower, right? That was the arrival of COVID-19 for us. You know, that was the arrival of environmental collapse for us. That was the arrival of Category 7 pyronados and, you know, catastrophic collapse for us, right? This happened a long time ago. In Hawaii, this is from a Hawaii story by Hawaii's Queen, which I recommend anybody to read. It's by the last leader of Hawaii before our apocalypse happened, where the United States illegally occupied Hawaii, destroyed our universal healthcare, our universal housing, our universal mass transit system, the highest literacy rate country in the world, where we were inventing submarines when the United States only dreamt of them with Jules Verne. And we also had an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, actually racially equal civilization, and renewable hydro-powered cities spun with turbines spun by waterfalls like Honolulu. And so, but before that, we knew that there were ships that were bringing plague staffed by white European crew members. And with contact testing and tracing, we discovered that the Chinese, whom the white ships blamed the disease on, were in fact not the main they were not the main pathological carriers. And they also did not have the pathology of white supremacy, uh, contorted Darwin findings for colonialism, also known as social Darwinism, right? Which is Nazi eugenics as well. But also, our Hawaii's leader discovered that the Chinese were not infected. It was in fact the white crew of that ship was the ones that were carrying the disease that were trying to kill us in Hawaii. Hawaii's world first universal healthcare system was led by Emma Kalani Kamaka Amano Kaleleo Nalani na Earuk. And in fact, Emma was a Cassandra of sorts. Emma could see that if Hawaii did not rapidly have medical procedures that were the best in the world, if we didn't have universal healthcare, no country on the earth had universal healthcare in this time, 1850s. Nowhere really has universal healthcare in the Western world to this day. It was 100 years before any European country, right, would even try universal healthcare. New Zealand, arguably not really European, it's a Euro colony, but was the first to try, but it was 100 years later. But Emma could see that universal healthcare was needed because she was a kind of a Cassandra of sorts. She said, like, there will not be any Hawaiians left. We're going to be sickened. We're going to die. And also, it's just the right thing to do, right, to not have privatized capitalist for-profit healthcare, because we need people to be healthy, because we need to deal with pandemics, because we need to do what we need to do to protect everyone, right? But that's just all Hawaiians. That's just how we thought. Like many indigenous peoples, we thought 7 generations out. We didn't have self-interested oligarchic infestations. We didn't have a plethora of viral. We didn't have parasite infestations, right? We didn't have COVID of the mind. That is capitalism. That is, and the COVID of the civilization and the government, that is an oligarchic, well-moneyed shadow aristocracy controlling everything that your government does, like the United States does, like all Western countries and European countries always had for millennia. And so there was a strict quarantine of all persons infected or under suspicion was maintained so scrupulously that we confined the ravages of the smallpox epidemic. There were multiple smallpox outbreaks and also bubonic plague. And there were some 800 cases and about 300 deaths. But in Hawaii, we did manage to confine, right, using the knowledge that we gathered and implemented about diseases. Hawaii was the first country in the world, did you know, to have public education, actual public education, like where everybody is getting a high quality education. Arguably, nobody's getting a high quality education. There are 7th graders who can't read. There are regularly 7th graders who can't read at a 4th grade level in 7th grade. There's a TikTok about that, right? Or it's today. The average American couldn't read above a 6th grade level. 54% of the U.S. today, adults, not kids, adults can't read above a 6th grade level. I predict by 2027, the average adult won't be able to read above a 4th grade level because of ongoing pandemic and the massive catastrophic brain damage that it can cause, and it frequently does cause fatigue and loss of focus, brain fog. And so preserving your mind is part of being able to even have the capacity to preserve yourself, right? And preserving your health in general is part of that. And so in Hawaii, we understood that we had to have the highest. That's why we had the 98% literacy rate in Hawaii, is because we were Cassandras that could see that if we didn't become as educated as possible, we would be overtaken by people whose flags kind of look like this, So we said we need to put a Union Jack inside of this is the Hawaiian flag of the Hawaiian country. We must put a Union Jack in our flag, otherwise it will be the end of the world, because the great powers, who are just thieves, bandits, and murderers and robbers, is what the European colonizers were, they will come through. And if we don't at least if we do not kiss up to them, basically, even though they're horrible barbarians, these British or French or Americans, one of them will come through and they will destroy us, they will enslave us, they will fully colonize us, the way they have done to Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So the Hawaiian concern, right, right? Sorry, it's raining now, but I am oracular in some senses, but I lack in my prognostication of the weather, unfortunately. But where was I? So the Hawaiian flag is because has the Union Jack in it because now the one here is the Kanaka Maoli flag, but it's part of the seal of one of our leaders. But the official Hawaiian flag is that one I just showed you. And the reason why it's in there is because, like I said, right, for indigenous people, full colonization, genocide, just mass annihilation. Many native peoples around the world, right, of black and brown, Asian, African, Latin American, North American, Pacific peoples, just they're gone. They don't exist. They're fully wiped out. There is no coming back. There is no finding the secret to preserve their life. They're gone. There are thousands of tribes, thousands of nations that are just vaporized. They had a language, doesn't exist anymore. Every single one of them is gone, right? Because of colonization. So literally, so becoming allegiant or at least professing Christianity was part of survival, right? Hawaiians, many of us at least pretended to be Christian, or sang the Episcopalian, the Catholic, and other church songs, because if you didn't, Europeans, right, in one sense, pretending to be Christian, like a Kawaiʻau church, pretending to having a Union Jack in your flag was like a vaccine. It was like a mask against the virus of colonialism, right? It was like Bruce Willis is wearing this mask because he has to, right? Hawaii, like the same way that you don't Bruce Willis doesn't want to be wearing a very uncomfortable, right, probably gold spray painted, but in the prop. But he doesn't want to be wearing this uncomfortable astronaut helmet and this weird suit, and he doesn't want to be in the freezing cold. But he has to do that. Why is Bruce Willis doing that? Because if he doesn't, he will die in a ubiquitous airborne virus that will kill you in less than a day if he takes that helmet off in the future of 12 Monkeys, right? Why do Holly and I and many people who are the Cassandras is trying to live according to the science, right? That's just me playing guitar, but why is Margot Robbie, right, another very famous Barbie Cassandra, wearing a mask, right? Because when many people are laughing, poo-pooing, and getting upset and attacking even people who are doing that, right? Where's my goddamn mask? There, okay. Why are we wearing a mask? It's a little bit uncomfortable. It's not that bad. It's more uncomfortable to wear like some Victorian corset sometimes if it's ill-fitted. It's more uncomfortable to have a virus that stops you from walking more than a block before you cough up blood, which many people do. Right? Wearing a mask is not as bad as not being able to remember what you were thinking about 30 seconds ago, which is part of permanent brain fog that millions of people have, right? Wearing a mask is not as uncomfortable as having excruciating fibromyalgia-like pain throughout your body, which is another long COVID symptom, which is what everyone's going to be it's what 16 plus million Americans have right now and counting. And more every time you get infected, with or without a vaccine, with or without hydroxychloroquine, with or without Paxlovid. Because long COVID is a permanent illness. 93+% never recover. Recovery is extremely rare. Anyway, so like Bruce Willis, we're doing something that is slightly uncomfortable because we know that for us to survive, and not just, more importantly, for our children, because we have 2 kids, and even more importantly, because of all children and our children's children and our children's children's children, 7 generations out, which is the way that Native Turtle Island and Native Kanaka Maoli and Native Indigenous people, many of them, think. That's our life ways, who abide by spiralic temporality, etc. We don't think about just now in this present moment, but the future, deep future, thousands of years out. That's how you maintain an old growth forest that provides medicine, food, or Hawaiian lo'i that provides food and medicine in our native Hawaiian ahupua'a system for millennia, right? You don't do that by thinking about right now and selfishly, right? And so, but we're doing things now that are not the most comfortable what we want to be doing. Like Holly and I would like to go to see, the Barbie movie in theaters. I remember Holly was like, we were like, oh man, I wish I could see it in theaters because like it would be a lot of fun. I want to see it on the big screen. We didn't go and see it. Why didn't we go and see it? Right? Because we're not thinking about ourselves right now. Because it's the same reason why Bruce Willis is wearing this thing that he doesn't want to wear. It's the same reason why Bruce Willis gets his head stuck into this giant freaking laser beam that causes some people's brains to liquefy. I was like, I don't think I want to risk a 30% chance of my brain liquefying, right? It's kind of like getting COVID. It turns your brain into a smashed omelet when the neurons start fusing together. So, right, but I also don't want to take the risk of getting my brain liquefied by COVID. But that's a valid concern. But it's like Bruce Willis is hanging out with unhinged Brad Pitt, getting slapped in the face and beat up by random people and the police. And sleeping in a trash can next to the dumpster, right? Because he's a homeless guy. And he doesn't want to be doing that, but he has to do that. Why does he have to do that? So he's trying to help the society of the people where he's from to survive this ongoing apocalypse, right? So anyways, let me tie this back into the reason why Hawaii has the flag is the Union Jack in the flag is because if we didn't, it's like wearing the mask. If we didn't, we don't want to have a Union Jack in that flag. We don't want to say, "Oh, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in Europe as it is in Hawaii." We didn't want to say these prayers. These are not our prayers. These are not our culture. This is not our language. The people that are making us do this, they hate us. We knew this. We killed Captain Cook because he was trying to kidnap our leaders' children and violating countless rules, right? Hawaiians did not love British people. Native Americans did not love Europe. I should say they cared about the people, but they did not like the way that they were treated. Right? Now, we don't hate humans just because they're humans, but we did not appreciate the way we were treated. But we had to, like wearing a mask, like taking your shot, like social distancing, like having a HEPA filter to survive as a people. We had to have that Union Jack in, or we would have been fully colonized and gone. There would be no 1800s Hawaii. We could just be another annihilated native people, right? We could just be another. The Maori actually became fully colonized for a point of time. That's one of our relatives. We saw other Pacific islands being completely wiped out. The Guamanian people today have even a worse situation in many ways than us. They have not even a pretense of the false democracy that the fake state of Hawaii gives, right? But as Native Hawaiians, so we took these steps, right? Practicing Christianity. Even the Christians who went to Kahumanu, who was one of our first leaders, early leaders in the country of Hawaii. She was a woman. She was a powerful woman that was unacceptable for patriarchal Western Christians, right? But Kahumanu flaunted the fact that she didn't really believe Christianity, right? She actually she did prayers, and then in front of the Christian missionaries, right, from Yale and Harvard, the Puritans that came to Hawaii, the first Calvinists that came to bring Christianity, right, which was civilization, right, as if any Christian is civilized in the West. They left all the child rape, murder, colonization, genocides coming from Christians for the most part. But so Kahumanu pretended she actually did Hawaiian prayers in front of them just to make a point that I'm doing Christianity so that all of y'all don't come over here and claim Christianity. We're not Christian, so we're savage. And it really irritated a lot of the leaders, right? It irritated the white Christian American and British people. Now Hawaiians got more careful when it came to the British, and many Hawaiians unfortunately don't realize that we were always pretending to be Christian this whole time in order to get the technological advances and to not be fully colonized. And today, unfortunately, there's many brainwashed people, and it sucks. But That's what we had. If we didn't do that, we would be wiped out. There would never have been 1800s Hawaii, right? Which means there might not be Sun Yat-sen, which means that China could be much further behind than they are in their revolutionary process to overthrow colonialism and capitalism and build a socialist path out of the hell that is the last 500 years. Anyways, back to the present though. So that's so when we do these things, that's what we're not doing these things because we just love not seeing family, because I would love to see family. That's one of the hard parts of Cassandra life is we have family members who don't take the pandemic seriously like us, a lot of them, like basically almost all of them. I don't know a single one actually of our family, and that really is hard. That it really hurts a lot, we would love to hang out. Like, we don't get along with every single one of them, but like, we did get along fairly well with a lot of them. And like a lot of life changes have made it such that, like, they want us to fly, but we're not taking that risk. We're not. You guys you're going to concerts, you're going to parties. Don't you see Adele is like every single one of Adele's cast is like vomiting up their insides and pooping whatever remains. Don't you see that, like, Paul Simon, great musician, will never play again because he's now deaf because of COVID-19 brain damage in his auditory cortex. Like, then, like, no, I don't see that. I don't see Silver Spook and Holly. I don't see the valid warning. I'm Silver Spook's sister. I'm Silver Spook's parents. I'm Silver Spook's cousin. I'm Silver Spook's all of our family and friends. I don't see what you're talking about. I don't see what predicament, what COVID. What are you talking about? I'm just at this concert unmasked. What COVID? Like, we have anti-vaxxers. I'm like, what? I don't know what. I've never heard of vaccines before. What are you talking about? It's not like it's not like the Native Hawaiians ever stopped the complete total destruction and demographic annihilation by vaccinating Hawaii with universal healthcare in 1859, despite being a Hawaiian activist. Silver Spook, I don't know what you're talking. I never heard of vaccines before. Vaccines are like, this is one of the deep problems. There's also like vaccines are like American Western colonizer stuff. I'm like, no, vaccines are like human science. Yes, there's some things that are Western. Disentangling that is very difficult in the Hawaiian community as well. But anyways, long story short, there's people who are not taking it. We would love to see them. I would love to see them. We'd love to kids and children and go to first birthday parties of nephews and nieces. This would be really awesome. It's like really heartbreaking. It's just part of Cassandra life is constantly being heartbroken. It's being socially isolated and dealing with the cabin fever and the depression sometimes, and just just sad days and fraying of your nerves and like loss of a lot of things, and just discontent with like being disconnected from people you used to be connected from. Surviving apocalypse is like a whole series of bad breakups. Surviving a slow motion pandemic based apocalypse. Well, it's multiple apocalypses happening. Multiple slow motion apocalypses. Collapse of capitalism, collapse of the West, collapse of health systems, pandemic, slow motion destruction, climate destruction. Surviving those is like being through a slow motion zombie apocalypse, watching all of your family and friends slowly turn into these weird alternate reality COVID minimizer denial zombies. People were already doing this when they were like driving Hummers, flying on 7 plane trips a year when we knew climate change was destroying the planet. Going to concerts, flying on planes to mass exchange, aerosolized, mass disabling, civilization destroying COVID is just a continuation of the mass denial of environment collapse, right? So, right, it's really a continuation, right? The people who like, I'm just gonna drive my Hummer, I'm gonna eat 25 Big Macs, and I don't care where this food comes. I don't care about how much energy I'm using. I don't care about how much I'm spending and how many 25 fast fashion clothes that I buy and discard. I don't care that it's building garbage in the garbage vortex. I don't care that it's destroying the ecology. I don't care that we're like mining and eradicating all life on Earth with this. I don't care that the Category 7 hurricanes are going to wipe out. I don't care about the wildfires. I don't care about the pyronados. I just want to have my trip now. I want to have my food now. I want to have my luxury vacation now. And it's like, but see these things that's coming. Well, I don't care because I prioritize now. I don't prioritize the future. I prioritize me. I don't prioritize the children. I don't prioritize other people's children, let alone other people's children's children. I prioritize now because why? Because I'm an American. I'm a Westerner. I'm a selfish, non-collective, non-spiralic, non-indigenous thinker. I don't care. What is a food? When am I ever gonna consume the potatoes and the fresh fruits of some kind of Eden based upon old growth forests and Native American food systems, right? I'm never gonna have an old growth forest. An old growth forest will take 1,000 years to grow back. I'm not gonna enjoy Native Americans' old growth forest. I don't care about that. I'm gonna cut down all that old growth. If there's an old growth tree, if there's a 100-foot wide mega tree that I could chop down and turn into some kind of profitable 2x4s to build McMansions with, I will cut that old growth forest tree because that helps me. That helps me. I don't care about the future. I don't care. So this is also why the West has to. What the West cannot coexist with biology. Biosphere on Earth really. And so. But but to have your old growth forest, to have a possibility that Holly and my children will be able to read above a 6th grade level when they turn 14, unlike most Americans, right? To have like a possibility of a civilization that isn't collapsing because 30 to 50% of the workforce cannot even walk to the forklift they're supposed to be driving, and they cannot even think enough to stop planes from crashing with mid-air collisions, right? They can't even keep their mind together to produce the electronic devices like phones, Huawei or otherwise, in order to continue civilization going. Because if children are mass disabled now, somebody is going to have to make the devices, maintain the electronic and digital infrastructure and that entire supply chains, whatever they are, right? Whether they are better, greener, more cyclic supply chains or global supply, whatever they are, we will need workforces, and they are being depleted. And we don't know the impact. The children who have gone through COVID now, right, that are already being utilized the children that are being used to operate sawmills that are being chopped up in them, sadly, in the United States and dying in sawmills, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds dying repeatedly in sawmill accidents. Children that are canning jam. This is part of the debilitated adult workforce that is now relying on child workforce that is running out because the children are unable to even think and physically move because of long COVID, which is the COVID. It's not the acute disease. It's the long COVID, which is like, as I mentioned on the other stream, it is like AIDS but worse. It's like hyper contagious, more transmissible than chickenpox AIDS. It destroys your immune system, and it also destroys all of your internal organs with mass inflammation and many other things. There will not be a civilization left in 10, 20, 30 years. There will be nothing left. It is a slow motion 12 monkeys, what we're moving in. And most people are in denial. The same way they're in denial of environment. The same way they're in denial of nuclear apocalypse. So it's nuclear apocalypse, climate apocalypse, COVID civilizational collapse. You have 3 simultaneous, it's a carnival fair horse race. Where you take that gun with that water gun and you shoot water into a little dot, right? And you and all your friends have some zany DJ, maybe Jesse Eisenberg from Adventureland, and you have to try to get your horses. So we're in a horse race between nuclear apocalypse, expanded proxy war, non-nuclear but still destructive apocalypse, environmental total collapse, and mass pandemic, mass disability-based civilizational collapse, when there are no workers left to maintain the baseline of our food systems, our industrial systems, our electronic systems, and our informational systems, and all the planes and all the trucks, right? Somebody needs to do that stuff. Even if you have a lot of AI that are automating a lot of these processes, people need to program, update, and maintain that AI. And in fact, actually, a lot of in-person physical stuff is some of the hardest stuff to do. That's stuff that they don't know. They don't know how to do that yet. A lot of that, the physical loading and unloading of trucks and getting supplies in and out of shopping centers and houses, all that stuff. All that stuff is not automated. Physical, functional, non-disabled people will need to be doing that, and there are already like 16 to 20 million disabled people and counting and growing. This is anyway. Those are the warnings that nobody is heeding. Those are the warnings that our family and friends are not heeding. And so that part of Cassandra life is just being like constantly in this state of confusion, disarray, disappointment, upset, sadness, trying to do whatever you can to get your dopamine up by like taking pictures of yourself and sharing them on Instagram, dressed up in a corset belt and a chartreuse, flamenco dresses, and I just do that because I just do that. It does help me feel better though to do that. to post my but also I just do that because it's something that I do. Also, I need to sell Neofeud to people. Thirst traps are valid methods of the mass dissembling. Thirst traps are valid methods of mass disseminating education and Cassandra warnings. I want to say that. So you can follow Silver Spook Glass. Because I can do this also. I can do that. Like when I can't go to if I wanted to go to a club or a party, or Holly and I wanted to go on a date somewhere and go out to some restaurant and be all cool and hot and two gay indigenous or two moms, one indigenous trans, and looking awesome in the in some fancy but not too fancy, because I don't like white people food, because it tastes like sadness and dull shit. But if we were going to some nice like Mexican or Chinese restaurant, we don't want, we can't do that because we don't want to spread trillions of microns, sub-micron level mass disabling, mass destroying pandemic. We don't want to do that. So instead I get on the internet, and it looks like using the internet a lot more, even though I already use the internet a lot. But Cassandra life is like using the internet to do a lot of things that you didn't used to use it for, but then like having to do that, feeling weird about it, feeling self-conscious about it, being like, am I just like a weird shut-in hermit nerd, and is that bad for my mental health? But is it worse to get a virus that is causing Paul Simon to no longer be able to hear and causing 7th graders to read below 4th grade level? I think maybe the mental health would be worse. Maybe your mental health is worse when you can't even think and you have no mind, So I'm like, it's balancing all those things. It's kind of like, should I go to this concert? I mean, it would be nice to go to a concert. Concerts are fun. Should I go to this movie? Oh, I used to love going to movies. Should I go to this? Oh yeah, I used to love doing it. But also, what is that doing to what you have to thinking about what you want to do, but then also thinking about what about our children's children? What about our children? If we bring home this virus and then we give it to them, and then our children have, Alzheimer's, which is a common disease now. Mass numbers of children are getting Alzheimer's and dementia, 17-year-olds, 12-year-olds even. What if we come home and we give our children Alzheimer's, and then their future is gone, right? Our concert, our movie, our lunch, our yoga, our feeling normal, right? Our feeling normal, and going to work and talking to what? Some people are nice at work. Do you need to socialize in school and work? School, I was bullied at school. I hated school, right? I hated the normal school. So I'm like, fuck school. Also, schools are places of mass disinformation, mass U.S. proxy, U.S. indoctrination, anti-indigeneity, training you to be a capitalist cog, to survive, to keep your head down in a tyrannical, non-democratic workplace that you will work in, and also get COVID, also get bullied, and also get shot at in the school mass shootings, which children are now being sold bulletproof armored backpacks for. So I mean, like when we're weighing the school one, we're like, should we stop homeschooling? I'm just like, well, no. Our kid, Holly and my kids perform at or above. They actually are performing a grade level or more in math and reading above their current grade level. So our kids, if they're in 5th grade, they're performing at a 6th grade level. If they're in 6th grade, they're performing at a 7th grade or higher level, right? They actually scored in the 98th percentile for math and reading, or the 95 to 100 percentile in math and reading in all the tests that they've ever taken. the standardized test, and we do like 1/4 of the total schooling that the average school does. So when it came to schooling, now it's like, oh well, but they won't be socialized. Is school a place for you to be talking to other people, disrupting, throwing paper airplanes, passing around notes about who's you're going to be dating, or is school a place of learning, right? So these are real questions that people need to ask themselves. Ideally, if people could learn well in school settings and schools were safe, had air filtration, masking was normal, and we weren't throwing matches, if we weren't continuing to fan the flames of a 10 to 30 year near-term civilizational collapse by mass disabling children in schools, by extension, mass disabling the future workforce, and on top of destroying their futures. With 75, if you get 2.5 infections a year, or 2 infections a year on average, by the time you're done with high school, you've had 36 COVID infections if you're a child now, approximately. How much where are we going to be in 20 years when children have had 36 reinfections of COVID? I've done the number. I've run the numbers. It's about 30 to 50% disability, complete disability. We're talking about complete disability, equivalent of having a massive heart attack, stroke, plus losing your ability to walk. 30 to 50% or more. It's hard. We don't have the exact numbers. In 10 to 30 years, at the current rate, the vast majority of everyone will have had long COVID, and the a third to 50% of the population will have catastrophic long COVID. Okay, so now if you don't care about the future and you only care about yourself, then go party. If you only care about feeling normal, right, and you don't want to take care of your children, right, and you don't care, then send your kids to a school with no mask, and don't fight for filtration, and don't fight for masks in your school. I mean, that's why people like this, that's why it's the young moms that are like, please put this filter that I bought for you in the school and turn the HEPA filter on in my child's classroom. And the school says no. This is like this whole article is about like this. She bought expensive filters to filter out the pathogens in the entire classroom. Gave it to the school, asked them to turn it on. They wouldn't even turn it on. They just let it sit there. She insisted, like, please, everybody mask. Your kids are wearing masks. The schools are making children take their mask off so that the adults can feel normal, right? Claiming, oh, children just don't want to wear it. It's uncomfortable for them. It's uncomfortable for you because you are selfish, self-prioritizing, right? Not Cassandra listening, Western colonial capitalist, which is selfish. Capitalism is just selfish, just manifested on a mass civilizational scale with economic characteristics. You are a Wendigo, and so you don't really care about the kids. What you care about is you feeling kind of normal right now. You are group thinking. You are afraid. You need to fit in because you give into mass collective psychosis. You give into mass collective hysteria and mass collective incorrect thinking. But you prioritize feeling part of the group, feeling popular, like not standing out over doing the right thing, and I shouldn't say valid. That is a normal human feeling, right? To see other people doing something very bad, right? Like attacking some marginalized person and not saying anything about it, right? That's called Nazi Germany. That's just a lot of Western societies, right? Because you don't want to get attacked for standing up for the black slave, right? When the white people are coming to mass lynch the black person, you don't say don't because you don't want to get attacked, right? When everyone is saying COVID is gone and you're like, well, I don't want to lose my friends and family. It sucks. It does suck to be disconnected from friends and family and other human connections because you believe in the correct scientific truth, and they believe in falsity that's going to hurt and destroy everything in the future, right? But you can't stop it, right? So you have to choose. Are you going to do the wrong thing, knowing that, right, like Cassandra, what you know may not be able to alter the future events, or are you going to continue to do the uncomfortable, socially costly, physically, it's not as bad. The worst part is the social disconnection, possibly career costly. If your workplace is anti-mask, which many of them are, and they're not taking COVID seriously, it could cost you in your career, which that's a real calculation you have to make, right? If you are a performer of concerts like Adele, right, you have to make that calculation. How am I gonna keep singing and doing my singing career, right? When everyone, right, when she's no longer taking selfies during Las Vegas, if everyone around me has COVID, I can't keep performing, right? It's only until like it's so catastrophically bad that like literally all of Adele's supporters couldn't keep going. All of her fellow the people that help make her shows run couldn't keep going, that Adele actually changed her taking selfies policy. She said, I can't keep going. Right? But it's not, but it's like, well, if I don't sing at concerts, then what is my career? Like, what am I? And so it's hardest for those people, it's a big, that's a calculation that people have to make, and that's part of living, that's part of living life amongst pathology. And if you're a Cassandra, living life amongst pathology and keeping on in pandemics and collapse during masks and now. So part of this is like, I just want to part of it is because like I haven't directly talked about this, but I just want to say, I did, to be honest, like I have trouble like connecting to pre-pandemic media a lot of the times nowadays. Because like, in part because like, I am not who I was in 2013 or 2017 or 2019, The world is not the 2019 world. We're not in the 2019 pre-pandemic world. Right? And like, as somebody who is like, ostensibly my brand is at least partially, part is just posting anti-capitalist thirst traps. But part of my brand is also making, being allergic to bullshit. And like trying my best to tell the truth, at least as I possibly can manage it. And so part of that is acknowledging that reality, right? And so it becomes harder and harder to connect. And then then there's another calculation in my head that says, should I make games? And because I make science fiction, I make entertainment, I make games, I make stories, I do storytelling for entertainment. Should I make stories that tell the truth about the present? But if Neofeud 2 deals directly with the pandemic, like I recently added this scene in my science fiction, in my dystopic cautionary Cassandra science fictional video game Neofeud, I added this scene which directly deals with the pandemic. Not this one. This is one where you get slapped by a giant mega squid. A angry eldritch deus machina tentacle smotes you, and if you have ever dreamt of that, now you can have it in Neofeud 2. But I made this scene. I don't know if I have it here, but I made a scene where there's a character in Neofeud 2 in this game where the main character puts a mask on because COVID 359, which causes you to bleed out of your eyeballs and every orifice if you get it, mask just exterminates every last. It's a super COVID engineered by, interstellar, horrible colonial capitalist gods. Like imagine Star Trek, but more honest. Like Europeans spread colonialism, capitalism, and turn all the Ewoks, possibly burnable, fossil fuels into fossil fuels, and then kill all the Ewoks. And then Neofeud 2, this horrible class spread this terrible pandemic intentionally to wipe out entire planets, right? And the only way to stop it is by masking. But then as the Elon of the future says, well, yes, people could mask, but everyone believes our mainstream narratives, and because they're cowardly group thinkers, the majority of the population believes COVID 349 is mild or like a little cold, they don't mask and now they're all gonna die. Now in Neofeud 2, they die quickly, like in 24 hours, bleeding out of their eyeballs and out of their butt. With COVID-19, it will take 10, 15, 30 years that's actually much more effective. It will take a long time for the reality to set in that everything is going away now. As the planes start crashing, as the phones start coming out of their plants, because nobody has the mental capacity to understand photonic lithography machines and how to make 7 nanometer chips, right? Because their brains are all destroyed, right? And all the 20 years of children no longer can replicate the previous generation's know-how, and also the physical bodies to walk even a mile. So actually COVID-19 is more effective to destroying a civilization in some senses. But I thought I had this thought that if I put in Neofeud 2, if I include this horrible disease, will people reject Neofeud 2 because I deal with the 2020's pandemic reality? So should I enable the mass delusion, the mass self-delusion, and the mass cowardice, and the mass catastrophic juggernaut towards self-annihilation, and the mass callous discarding of children's futures? That's the worst part, right? Like I said, that's why it's a young mother. Should I enable people's discarding of everyone's futures for their selfish needs by leaving that part out of Neofeud 2? That's a serious conundrum that I went through. And because I said, like, there's many things like that. I'm like, should I include this? Because this will irritate many of the because many of the people who play video games, like many people, they're living in an alternate version of the present where COVID is not that bad. It's either you take vaccines and you can go back to normal, or you go back. The Republican is go back to normal. The Democrat version of the pandemic is take vaccines and go back to normal. It's the only difference, right? And so it's like, will people not like it because of that? This is like Adele, like Paul Simon, like Blink-182, and all these bands that have now come down with COVID. These are like everybody who decides if they want to go to the university and have a job in an office, which they're making you go back to the office. Like everyone who has a job or a friendship, to have that friend, to go to that concert, to play that concert, you have to make this calculation, right? The calculation is the cost to myself and the future of this event by participating in the mass spreading of this plague going to increase? Is that worse or not as bad as the short-term benefit that I get from going to this concert, keeping this job at university, school, keeping this friendship of my family and friends who are anti-maskers? And also, will the loss of Neofeud sales because of anti-mask, disconnected from reality, non-Cassandra people, will that negatively impact Silver Spoon Games such that we can't keep going? I mean, I'm not. That's not a rhetorical trick. That's like literally the case. So I feel like I just had to say that because I've been thinking about that like a long time, and for other people who don't want to acknowledge that reality, don't know how to acknowledge that reality, are economically compromised because their jobs, their close friendships, their family, sometimes close family and friend relationships are keeping you even alive. That can be the case. That's a very hard call, for a lot of people who don't have a lot left, and they're like, I can't stop seeing these family, even though I know that this is in the long term going to be bad. That's a very hard calculation to make. People who are very depressed, people who are, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong. I'm just saying that is the case now. That is the Cassandra life amongst mass mass denial, mass mental pathology of living delusional or living willing ignorance that we live in, and that's also that is the Cassandra life amongst mass pandemic illness. Should I even talk about this? Because this will disrupt the YouTube channel algorithm, because people will downvote this, because most people, even who watch YouTube, don't want to think about it. They want to go back to a normal where they could just think about, I don't know, Doomerang out, or how awesome Diablo 4 was, or whether the Barbie movie has, gender roles that are pro, is it a pro or anti patriarchy, right? Which I made a video about that, so that's a valid thing to make a video about. But I thought about making this video, but I was like, well, maybe I'll just not talk about what I really want to talk. That's not the only thing I want to talk about, But it's something that is like, this is like very much like, this is what life is actually like. So actually, this week I actually felt better, I actually felt better this week than most weeks, because in the game I actually started trying to actually like, I just, you know what? I'm just going to incorporate what I actually feel like right now, and not trying to write a cyberpunk game that's about 2017. I think it's part of like what sometimes I stall out, and sometimes it's because I'm not actually, Neofeud 1 is like, that's all just my personal perspective. That's all me, my worldview, where I come from. Weird ass, Sega Genesis references with William Gibson, Neuromancer science fictional quotes, and then suddenly there's a Star Wars hyperspace jump, and then there's a Terminator, there's a delinquent cyborg kid that has wires coming out of his neck, and he's smoking a cigarette for no apparent reason, and then there's and then he's also kind of looks like John Connor, and then rants about plutocracy, and the phony marginalized capitalist class in Hollywood, and so all of that stuff is like, it was, Neofeud 1 was very honest, in a way that I've never been able to be in any, because I've made many games before that. I worked on many games before that, but I never made a game that was like really actually, this is what I actually feel, and this is what I actually think. And so like sometimes in Neofeud, it starts to drag, because I feel like I'm not being, it's not that I don't like what I'm making in Neofeud 2, but I feel like I'm not fully in it. But part of it is because my brain is asking this question: is this game that I'm making, if I am fully honest, will enough people who play adventure games, who like the stuff that I've put out, who might be potential players of the cyberpunk anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist adventure game Neofeud 2, will enough of them not reject it because of how real will it be so real? Not like will it be so real that people just can't handle it and throw it away? I can't handle thinking about whether the pandemic is going to destroy us all, and whether my personal choices are. I can't handle like this aspect of there's many other things that, like, there's some other things like that. Like, I can't handle thinking about whether the West is collapsing and that there is a global rise of the East, and I can't think about China in anything other than the CCP. It's a CCP brainwashed shill world or something, right? I was like, I don't know if I should include this. But I felt better this week because there was a character that now wears a mask. So this is my masked character. I just want to show this off. And like, it's like this. So it's like, and it's like, well, I'm gonna say and have it be exactly the way that I'm feeling right now, which is like, I am surrounded by on the surface appearing slightly normal, but actually, mid-apocalypse world with half zombified and increasingly zombified people who have had 6 rounds of COVID, who are continuing to not take it seriously, mass disabling themselves, coughing and spitting, children, and they're just in denial. They're just in, it's like it's like being in the zombie apocalypse, except people aren't eating your brains. They're just walking around, spitting fluid into each other's lungs, wondering why they can't think straight, why they can't walk, claiming that they have, a mystery illness, mystery flu, summer flu, and it's like this is, it's like So I'm like, I had to make it. So, but after I made this scene, I was like, I feel a lot better because now I feel like I'm less. I'm not enabling, but I'm not I'm not withholding something from the creation process. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's a long discussion about that I could go on forever. Let me come back to the topic and finish because it's 12:43. But yeah, anyways, so life, yeah. So it means, as I kind of just to recap real quick, it's not easy. It's not fun. You know, you have to be surrounded by, you have different friends now, right? When you try to do the best thing for the collective and the masses, you get surrounded by weird Brad Pitt with like very wily eyes, and he shows his naked butt to you involuntarily without your consent repeatedly. You're surrounded by weird Nazi-ish scientists and Johnny Cage, and that one German actress who was in the Monkey Islands TV series. You have to live in this horrible frozen wasteland sometimes. It's a lonely place. You have to wipe all of your groceries. We still wipe all the groceries. We use like hand sanitizer and wipes. Every time we go, we use hand sanitizer and we use wipes because it has been shown that you can also spread COVID with physical bodily fluid contact, saliva contact on your hands. And so, but that part is actually not that bad. Once you get used to it, it's like wearing a seatbelt. Seatbelts are not the most comfortable thing to wear. My dad doesn't wear seatbelts sometimes, because he's of the generation that said, screw you, it's not comfortable for me to wear a seatbelt, and I'm going to stick it to the man in the hippie way. And it's like, but, it's not that bad. If you don't get in a car crash most days, right? And then one day you do, and then you're glad that you took the precaution, right? And so the masking, wiping, it's actually not as bad as many people want it to be. One of the hardest things about the masking is because people are used to seeing each other's faces. Yeah, you want to see faces. You want to see each other's faces, right? That's a normal thing to want. It's a normal thing to want. It means you can't see a lot of expressions when you see when you see other people. That is different. That is different. In East Asia, where people are taking these things more seriously, do more, and they prioritize the collective more than in a lot of Western places, and especially Western capitalist hellholes, then it's not unusual, right? Like, and actually in a lot of East Asia, they were masking well before the pandemic because that's just what people do, right? People wear masks. There's all kinds of masks. The KN95 is like, there are way more stylish East Asian masks. Like the KN95 comes in pink, black, gold, all kind of different patterns. We have many of them, right? The West is the N95 is not that good. It doesn't. I pointed this out in the Twitch stream recently. It's not that flexible. It doesn't really mold to your face as well as it could, and it doesn't have a flexible, bendable nose piece. That it's also somewhat monoracial in the sense that it doesn't take the nose shapes of non-white people into account, right? It's very one size fits all, and by size like BMI, I mean the size of a Scandinavian / Anglo-Teutonic white man, approximately 6'1", right? And the nose that is shaped, a nose that is has the width of a quarter, that's not what a lot of African noses are like. That's not what a lot of Pacific Islander noses are like. That's not what a lot of Asian noses are like, right? So it fits badly. Actually, what one of our kids, what is life in the pandemic like? What life in the pandemic is like is and what is life, Cassandra life like is, because you're homeschooling and your kids are performing a grade level above and they're in the top 100, 90 to 100 percentile of reading and math. But the other trade-off is, socialization. So it means going to find online book clubs and reading groups so that our kids can socialize, and one of our kids was having their social time, right, in a distance digital Zoom format or Discord format, and they were like, the friends, some of them had COVID, right, and they were talking about masking. And they were saying like, oh well, these masks don't really fit my face, but and so our kid was saying, well, that N95 mask is the American mask is not really made for all face shapes, and you're this face shape, these KN95s, right, or other kinds of masks, these KN95s and the KN94s. They're more flexible and they're adjustable to fit different face shapes. And if one type of mask doesn't work, then there's these other ones. And so so part of surviving the Cassandra complex is building a new culture, building a new normal, and participating in a new normal, right? Where it's just like, well, we're just socializing this way. When we see each other in person, we're having these masks, and that's just what we're doing now, like in a lot of China, like in a lot of Korea, like in a lot of even in Japan, seeing somebody with a mask is not like, oh my God, why are you reminding me there's a pandemic? Now I'm upset. It's just like, why do you have to ask those questions, right? Why don't you just wear one, right? Also, the N95, the American mask, the Western mask, they only come in white, right? Well, that's not, if you want to normalize masking like clothes, right? Like you're not wearing a fire, it doesn't have to look like building culture that can survive, right? Building culture that is interesting, that allows people to express themselves, that allows people to like communicate their personality, right? Is part of like, when people, like a lot of people didn't want to wear like certain types of clothing, the shirts, people didn't like, want to wear a lot of clothes. Some people don't want to wear underwear, but that's not visible. But, but at a certain point, it's like, well, if you don't wear your footwear, now we know that, some people still don't want to wear footwear, then you're going to have lots of diseases that you're going to get through your feet. And so now that we wear footwear, you can wear shoes, you can wear high heels, you can wear slippers, you can wear red or blue or purple or these other colors, right? So like having a culture that allows expression that is like interesting and fun and not simply functional, right? Like the Western masks is part of building a part of building the parts of the future culture of pandemic accepting civilization, right? It's really like, that's like a longer term process that people have to collectively work on, that the West is behind on, right? Is building a culture of accepting that like, this is what we're going to be doing now. We're going to be doing this. You have two choices, right? You can exist in the world that you live in, or you can mass disable yourself and die and then not exist in it anymore, right? The choice that most people are making right now is not going to be apparent for a little bit, but that's the choice. We can exist in the world where people are masking, have air filters, don't have these mass unopened gathering, and you can mourn the loss of your open air unmasked concerts and massive indoor gatherings, or you can, right? And that's, and that's not going to be, I'm not saying that it's not saying that that's not going to be hard for a lot of people who love going to unmasked mass indoor gatherings and mega concerts. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but I'm saying that is the choice that we will have to make collectively and individually and collectively, and just as one example, here's somebody there was a gathering that recently happened. Where's that link to it? There was a meeting where just as one example, there was a meeting where every single person at this meeting got who wore a mask didn't get the COVID, and every single person who a lot of the people, but only the people who took off a mask to eat lunch got the COVID, right? So there's a transmission at the gatherings that had no precautions, but not enough about events where folks were successfully protected. So this was a meeting that somebody had where it was held outdoors with free N90, the V-Flex N90. Maybe there's new types of N90, the V-Flex N95, which is better than the original one. Unfortunately, I think. Well, anyways, okay. So COVID was present, but it didn't spread. So 25 people were tucked under the awning to stay out of the rain. For many, it was the first time seeing certain friends since 2019, so there was hugging and close proximity. One group wasn't 100% consistent about masking inside the convention and ate inside restaurants together. The meetup at the end of the third day of the convention, so we didn't know how often they were exposed, but 2 days later, they unfortunately started testing positive. Only that one group got sick. No one else at the event wound up ill or testing positive. We didn't have transmission. It's entirely possible to have responsible gatherings that take the well-being of attendees into account while still making it possible for old friends to see each other and for new friendships to be made. But it takes a bit of extra planning and consideration. But know that you can do it. So, like, you can have the meetups, but the meetups will have to be in this way, you know. The lie, as I said, the lie that's being told is that the conservative one is there's no COVID, it's nothing, it's just a little cold, it doesn't matter. The Democrat one is because they're more invested in private healthcare companies, unlike Hawaii, where universal healthcare don't take it seriously, but just have a vaccine or have some Paxlovid, right? Have some treatment that we're making billions of dollars selling, which is not effective, but it's just not enough either, you know? And so, but I just wanted to put that out there because this is this is what we're going to have to adjust to. Or I'm just to say, if Silver Spook and Holly and a handful of other of us are not going to be the only people, that we're just going to be the last few people that are taking the pandemic seriously while everything else goes to shit. This is not going to. I really don't want that because, it's really what we as the Cassandras are doing is like watching everything slowly, slow motion collapse, wondering how bad it has to get. Like, does every single touring musician need to get sick? Does Beyonce and everyone else need to get sick? Right? Everyone, One Direction, Mariah Carey, does every single one, everybody have to get sick so that there are no concerts left? By that time, you might have an entire generation of children that are incapable of working, or like 50% of them, like simply cannot either walk, cannot, do any kind of physical activity for more than 2 minutes, which puts you out of most physical jobs, or is unable to think straight, putting you out of much of the intellectual and the creative jobs, right? So the ability to keep electrical lines running is falling apart. The ability to keep planes, trains, cars, trucks, even high-speed rail running is falling apart. The ability, so we're like ideally we don't get that far, but it's not something that we individually can decide. This is something that the sum total of human action on the earth will be deciding going forward. So I'm doing this video hopefully to avoid the worst case scenario. There is the difference between 12 monkeys. I gotta finish. It's one. I gotta get the fuck out of here. The difference between 12 monkeys, right, and the real world is that in 12 monkeys, there was nothing that Bruce Willis could do to stop the end of the world, right, and the mass death of 99% of people and the collapse of civilization. There was he could only try to help the survivors in the future with information from the past, right? But there are many things that we cannot avert now, but there is much that we still can do in the present and going forward to make the damage that is already done and the damage that is to come that we haven't felt yet less bad. The apocalypse is not something that's like it's not a binary, and I mean that in I mean that in a gender way, in the sense that you can be a boy or a girl or something in between and contribute to apocalypse. And also, it's not an on-off switch. It's not a 0 or a 1, right? It's not something that's like science fiction has a tendency to make it that, right? It's either Skynet takes over and everyone's dead, or we're all just living. It's either some super intelligent machine takes over, kills everyone, and everyone's wiped out, and there's a handful of survivors wandering through the wasteland, or everything is fine, the internet's great, and we're moving towards some great future, right? We are actually moving towards some of the with artificial intelligence, generative AI, ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion. We are moving in a direction that is another one of these problems, where the artificial intelligence, or what is called artificial intelligence, is starting to disrupt society. But again, it's not a binary. It's like, oh, one day, it's not like Skynet takes over. It's like suddenly lots of writers and actors might not have jobs, and millions of people are losing more of their jobs. And then the next year, more jobs are jeopardized, right? And then ChatGPT and AI is writing textbooks so that reptilian, right? So that mushrooms that of a genus and a species that are actually toxic and can kill you are in fact being described by AI written science textbooks, rolling out in kindergarten, rolling out in 5th grade and university classes. And the poisonous mushrooms are being described as edible. This has already happened, by the way, right? Writers who used to be able to write interesting, fulfilling novels are now relying on AI to write their stories sometimes, and what that's causing is the collapse of the ability for humans to tell competent stories. And they get more schlocky and backward. That's part of why I don't use AI, also is because it's unethical plagiarism software. And now those writers are discovering a lot of people don't want to read books that are written by real human writers because they can just ask an AI to write, Pride and Prejudice, but set in a science fictional Star Wars setting. And they can get the novel they want rather than wait for some writer to write it for them. And that, which is its own problem, because then who's going to write new original content that actually has authentic, that is telling the truth about the moment that you're in? The answer is you won't get it. You'll be trapped in a doom loop. You will be trapped in an artificial intelligence exacerbated doom loop of content and of creation and of art and of science itself, even, right? If the people who used to know how to construct and investigate and learn how to do this, is why it was very smart of China to basically revoke PhDs if you use artificial intelligence generation software to do any of your classwork. This is a problem that teachers and professors are grappling with right now, which is how to even know whether your student has completely AI generated their entire essay for homework in 3rd and 5th and 7th and 11th in college class, right? And so but it's not it's not on or off. Like, oh, suddenly we're living in I have no mouth and I must scream, and we're like 5 last humans are being tortured by AI who has written 100 trillion times the word hate on a microprocessor inside of their underground nuclear apocalypse bunker, transistor. We're not. It's not an on-off switch. It's like slowly we're moving in the direction. We're slowly slow motion car crashing. We're slow motion train wrecking. We're like the Malaysian plane, like slowly hitting the water, and bits, like in some naughty's music video using bullet time, watching bits of the fuselage start to crumple, and like the children can't read. Children in 7th grade can't even read at 4th grade level. Is the cockpit glass starting to shatter, and you're like, oh shit, right? As you're hitting the water, right, in slow motion. And then little bits of the glass are like flying into your face. And you're like, oh my God. And that's Paul Simon can't hear, right? But it takes a lot longer than the near instantaneous way that it often is in science fiction, right? It's a very hyper object frog in the pot problem. And so that's why, anyway, I could just go off on this forever. So I should cut it off. But let me just say the rest of the Hawaii thread. You can learn that in Hawaii, we had the world highest literacy rate, universal healthcare, electric lights before the White House, mass affordable transit, industrialization, no homelessness, full racial equality. And after the U.S. coup/apocalypse, all of that reversed. And also there was a history of Hawaiian and Asian homes and businesses being burned prior to the Maui fires in the 1900, where sick whites were treated in posh hotels, and Hawaiians and Asians were forced back into the fire at gunpoint by cops and white armed guards. So that's something that you should learn. And also was based upon a pandemic that was weaponized in the past. And this thread has a whole history of that, and all leading up to the present. Where I talk about these topics of air filtration in schools, offices, normalized masking are desperately needed. The wealthy have UV. The rich private schools have mandated air quality testing with highest quality air, which reduces by over 50% the chance of getting sick, and much higher in many cases. every single person surrounding the richest have PCR testing. They're not risking getting even mild COVID. The wealthy, you should know this. They're not telling anyone, but that's what they're doing. They're telling the masses go back to normal while they don't. The super rich are not going back to normal. They want everyone else to, right? So let's not be victims of weaponized virus class warfare as colonizers have used disease against us indigenous. And again, I'm saying like this is speaking from experience. This is not even the pandemic apocalypse is something, as I said, as indigenous people, we were the first Cassandras in many ways. We've already been through apocalypse. We've been through multiple apocalypses already, right? And now this one is not identical to previous ones, but in the same way, precautions that we have taken against specifically pandemic-related Armageddon, we have been through, and Hawaiians, at least I know Hawaiians specifically, had taken steps and precautions to make sure that we did what we needed to do to protect people. A lot of Hawaiians didn't believe in vaccinations when it first came around because they're like, that vaccination, that's like a Western thing. Europeans do that. I don't know about the vaccines. And so because there were questions, our leaders came out and said, well, it's safe. I will take one. Here is the science. And Hawaiians, the average Hawaiian could read above the average American in comprehension. In our reading level was way above America in the 1800s, right? 98% of us were literate. Less than 56% of Americans are today, statistically. And so like Hawaiians read, understood. Also, we didn't have capitalism and colonialism and diseducation, disinformation, which is inherent in those systems, propagating. And so everyone got on the same page and said, okay, what we need to do is we're all gonna get the shot. We're going to quarantine. We're going to lock down because that's the science that we need to do to protect everyone. Nobody, like I think maybe one or two people, most of them were non-Hawaiians. There were like a tiny handful of people who did anti-lockdown procedures when we had the smallpox outbreaks, and a handful of Hawaiians who were reticent about the vaccination. But very quickly, everyone got on the same page because we had mass education, not disinformation, and we had leaders, right, who under a non-Western capitalist so-called democracy who did prioritize the masses. I mean, kind of like a lot of certain East Asian countries that prioritize the collective needs and are actually functionally democratic, and take the government leads in a way and actually does do for the people, considers the collective mass benefit and the long term of the civilization, not just the right now. And all of that together, right, was what we did in the past to survive the pandemic. And that's also why we will never stop masking, and likely we never will. There will be worse pandemics. There will be worse than COVID coming, wildfire particulate in the air. And, so we adjust our work and our play and our school, and we deal with that in a rational way, despite the lack of clear-headedness and empathy around us. I'm making this video because I hope that we increase the amount of empathy, clear-headedness, and accepting that, yes, what we're going to need to do is very difficult. What we're going to need to do is like seriously, very hard decisions will need to be made. In every person's life will be different. We homeschool and we have work from home. So Holly and I fully will admit that we are in a position where the sacrifices that we make are not as great as some people who work in a busy, unmasked workplace that has an anti-mask policy or something like that. That's a harder thing to do, right? It's harder decisions to take this pandemic seriously when your job is asking you to not, right? If you have a lot of friends that you're constantly seeing in person, family or friends you see in person, they don't want to do masking, they don't want to do remote visiting, right? That's not an easy decision. It's not easy. That's a really crappy decision. You don't want to go to a gathering and be like jeopardizing yourself and your children. And also you don't want to go to the gathering and like make it weird the whole time. So you're like, well, I'm just going to not make it weird at the gathering by being the only masked person at this family or friends gathering. I'm just going to stay home. Right. And that has a consequence because then you're cut off socially, and human beings need socialization. So you got to figure out what you're going to do. That's not an easy thing to do, but we have to figure that out or not. And then the apocalypse happens. Anyways, okay, that's a good place to end. Don't forget to you can support us through Ko-fi at SilverSpook. If you appreciated this education, this trying to be not like I'm not honest, but trying to address difficult topics that that are like very close to home, especially right now. Consider supporting us through Ko-fi, direct support through Ko-fi as well. You can help us out through patreon.com/Neofeud, and you get access to the SilverSpook Discord, behind the scenes on what we're working on, and also you get to SilverSpook University, which is like 1,000 hours of content that I've put out categorized by topic, and you get to help us keep doing indigenous, left, anti-capitalist education. You get to help us do Cassandra education. I know some people are like, well, I don't believe anything you're saying. I don't want to think about it. So, well, I'm sorry. I won't be talking about this topic like every single stream. This is just like, I needed to do this video right now. And Neofeud is also a game that supports everything that we do here, including the creation and finishing of Neofeud 2. It's a game that is not on sale, but you can wishlist it if you don't want to pay the full price at the moment. Also, thanks a lot to Aurora Terrorbird. I think it's Grant in the chat. Thanks for leaving the review on the Neofeud. Very, very, very much appreciated. If you have a second to leave a very short review, it is massively helps us out because it does help the game to get discovered and shown to people in the Steam algorithm. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and Mac and for Linux. It's a game that is it is on sale right now, so you can get it on sale. There, you don't have that much money, you can get it over here. And also, it's a game that is maximum revenue comes to us when you buy it on itch. Also, you can get Decolonators, which is a game about kicking capitalist colonizer butts out of Vietnam, made with the assistance of one of our good communist Vietnamese friends, Luna Oi, who also frequently wears masks, and Vietnam taking the pandemics far more seriously than many Western countries and their populations. Indigestar is another game where you kick an empire. An empire arrives on your planet to eradicate and plunder, and you must heal the land and people, prevent erasure of your native language and culture, and confront invaders before it is too late. So it's like science fictional version of what it's like to be a native Hawaiian. We have Pigeon with Gun and Woman is a book by Holly, where Holly was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it is not a historical retelling, but a work of fiction that lends a different perspective to what is usually read. And this is free, or you can throw some money our way when you pick it up. Follow at SilverSpook Games at Octanon.social, at SilverSpook Games at Mastodon.social. Follow Bruce Willis at SilverSpook Guy. No, I'm just kidding. You can follow me at SilverSpook Guy on Twitter, at SilverSpook Games, and there's Instagram and Facebook. I actually have multiple Instagram and Facebook accounts. I got too many accounts to even remember what the hell accounts I have. I almost typed Facebook into there. That's how discombobulated I am. I chalk it up to another impact of surviving mass pathology as Cassandra. Terminus Cyberstar is a game that is the cyberpunk sequel, and also Neofeud and Terminus World are all blending together. So if you want to connect to the Neofeud world, part of that is Terminus Cyberstar and part of that is Terminus Machina. And this is a cyberpunk RPG that is in the vein of Deus Ex and System Shock that is also nearly completed, and I'm the content director and lead writer of it. And you can follow that on at Terminus C. Don't forget to follow Holly at the Tech Fairy, is Rife, partner here, producer and manager with Kate Nix, parent and caregiver to Hawaiian Kiki, as we said here in the SilverSpook Cooperative. Continuous chronic illness haver and chronic mask wearer, and I include myself in those two categories as well. So we continue to do those things. So also Holly is reporting, tweeting important things like this. So don't forget to follow Holly, and don't forget to check out the Kate Nix show, which is coming up next episode of this season on Tuesday. And thanks a lot to Big Teal for hanging out this whole time, and everyone else who chatted. Thanks, Holly, for moderating, as always. Thanks a lot to patrons. Thanks so much for your continued support. Without your support, well, we don't have, we need your support. We really do need the support because like I said, when we run things the way that we run them, it becomes difficult. And so having people that help us keep on doing the education that we try to do. If you don't like some of the things that I say, I guess, I apologize. I know some things I say can be not easiest for people to hear, but know that whenever I try my best to share the information and the education that I actually, that is what I actually think. And so thank you for sticking through, even if it's hard to hear, especially if you are somebody from a colonial background. And it is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. And we will now be finishing, and we'll be back later on. Until next time, okay. Keep your Bruce Willis polished. Okay. Don't hang out. Don't stick your head into a Neuralink or a 75 terawatt brain muddying machine that sends you back in time if you can help it. Don't hang out in a blue photo filter wasteland. Okay, don't dress up in this weird Aloha shirt because, well, don't throw guns around the airport because that's kind of ill advised. And have a good time, and we'll be back in the